let's get started with our second match of the day. We have the wonderful Dignitas taking on the Playing Ducks. My name is Trixler. Over here, Caldor showing up once again.
Yeah, we have pretty good match on our hands right now. We just saw Synergy take a victory, and of course the Playing Ducks, they're also one of the teams that is threatened a bit by the Crucible, so they are trying to make a stand here and against Dignitas. It's going to be an interesting match going up against the champion of the Western Clash.
Yeah, speaking about threats, the Playing Ducks has been a team that has actually taken one game off of each of the big three in every one of their matches. They have contended, and they intend to. It's actually really interesting. When we first talked to the Playing Ducks, they mentioned that they're excited to actually just try to stay in the middle of the pack, so they have an opportunity to grow in the HGC. Let's check out the standings and see where exactly the Playing Ducks actually do reside. They are currently placed at number 5 here. They have a chance here to maybe tie it up with Team Expert, which is pretty outstanding to say when you think about it.
Yeah, they have actually been really impressive during the first part. So right now, I feel like they are one of the teams that have a very good shot of improving further. Teams have a great mentality, I believe, and their coordination so far has been really nice. Them being over like Trick, they're actually in a really sweet spot here, but they have, of course, to make sure that nobody is going to surpass them.
Yep, gotta be really careful there. So we have a solid matchup in front of us. It's great to come back from the Western Clash. It's been, what, 3 to 4 weeks since the Western Clash? And it just seemed like Dignitas had found another level. They were comfortable with each other. Xaylia, when it first started here, the HGC Europe, the question was, will Xaylia fit with Dignitas? Is it even a thing? That's not even a question anymore. I now look at that roster, and he just fits in perfectly.
We keep saying, like, they basically win every single offline tournament within Europe that they've been participating at. Well, if we're not talking about the globals for a second, but if you look at Dignitas, especially in 2016, they won every single regional final with one exception, and that was when they just picked up a new player and weren't even expected to do all that well. But outside of that, they have won everything.
Well, we're getting ready for the next matchup, but for you at home, there's more to go around when talking about Heroes Esports. If you missed earlier matchup, Synergy versus BGNs was actually pretty darn exciting, some back and forth action between those two teams. Later on, North America will be here, and we know you're excited for North America. NIS, Team Freedom and Superstars, No Tomorrow, and Tempo Storm. But again, the matchup, our second one here in Europe, and our last one for the day, Playing Ducks and Team Dignitas. I'm ready to bump into it, man. First off, Chris has been playing Vol like crazy. He was already playing him pretty often in the first few weeks of the HGC, and now that Vol is one of the staples here in Europe, we may have an opportunity to get to watch more of those sick mechanics.
That's definitely one of the things that we have to watch out for during the draft. Another thing is that Dignitas is also very hyped for this. I mean, they've been tweeting the entire time that they are ready for HGC to start, and Mena in particular has been very vocal on Twitter and has been tweeting the entire time that he wants it to start, that he's ready for the big plays again. So, yeah, he needs to back that up today.
Well, let's find out. Where are we going for game number 1 in this best of 5 series? Braxis Holdout, and this was chosen by the Playing Ducks.
Yeah, the Playing Ducks with Braxis here, and they're also one of the teams that in the past also have chosen sometimes battlegrounds that other teams are not all that familiar with and used that to their advantage, which is a very smart choice during a draft or during a map draft as well. So Braxis is a little bit more common these days, but yeah, I'm ready to see how the foreman is going to do on that map, and especially those Vala skills might be something that we're going to be able to see right here.
Well, I want to know what they're going to do on the battleground, but I also want to know what the players think about today's matchup. Let's find out.
Sport Billy joining the Playing Ducks seemed to completely revitalize the team, basically. With him, they've actually looked really strong, and I think it's definitely possible that they can take that 4th spot over Expert.
So it's been really weird playing in a full German team again, just switching from English voice comms to German voice comms, but it helps a lot, like just speaking in one language. All the time you have to think a bit less, because when I speak English I have to think about what I'm talking about and all that stuff, and just like German comes out normally. Obviously we still speak all the like keywords on English, but just like most callouts we just can straight up talk in German. But I've been pretty happy with the team. Everyone seems to wanting to improve a lot. And yeah, we're just gonna practice really hard and hope we can do the best.
So again, we are going to Braxis Holdout for game number 1, and this is something in the past that we've had a lot of conversation around when you talk about the playing Ducks. One, because of that Chromie. Chris has always had that kind of hidden behind him, and this is a battleground that actually gets banned against them a lot, which is interesting because if you look at the stats, the playing Ducks are only 1 and 3 on Braxis Holdout in terms of professional games, but they really love going to this battleground.
I mean, it also comes oftentimes down to who you are facing on a certain map. If you are playing only like the big 3, for example, on one of your favorite maps, it kind of explains a bit why you might have a lesser win rate on it. But they have an opportunity right now to change that. But again, they're facing one of the big 3. They're facing the champion of the Western Clash. So this is not going to be an easy best of 5 for them.
Well, let's move into the best of 5, figure out what's going on for our teams. Dignitas will have the first ban of the day. And again, man, I feel like I talk about Dignitas and I start to fanboy over them a little bit. Xaylia and Snitch, I just think are so great for this roster, and I think they're going to be great for this meta because they're so versatile. They play so many different heroes, and it feels like with the meta kind of floating around, these double supports and these double tank compositions, Dignitas can be at home. They should technically just fit in.
The fun thing about Xaylia is that they actually told him at some point that he has to step it back a little bit. When he's joined the team, I was watching every single scrim of them that I could get my hands on. And I have my own database where I'm just like checking hero pools and everything. And for Xaylia, it just kept growing. It was just like, he's all over the place. He's playing like sometimes the second support. He's all of a sudden on the melee here. They plays the range. And at some point I looked at the hero pool, was just like, that can't even be working. I mean, like, at some point, you have to give the kid a break.
Yeah.
So he's new in the team. He needs to get the synergy with the rest of them. So they started to really take some of the heroes away from him at some point and said, like, okay, we need to, like, find more of a niche where he actually fits in. His hero pool still is, of course, incredible, but there was so much pressure on him.
Yeah, he has the potential to literally become a superstar. If he was a little bit more outspoken, I think more people would talk about him more than he's already talked about. Just because when you actually have a conversation with him, he's so lax. He's just like, okay, yeah, I'm good. It's whatever. It's no big deal.
He's pretty outspoken on TeamSpeak.
Yeah, right. Well, on the other side, playing Ducks, a team that's been growing on their own. Chris Blosian, in particular, has been sought out as a strong warrior for the team. We've seen a lot from him. Sport Billy made a name for himself in the first few weeks of the HGC with solid Medivh play. He did pull out some Zarya, currently 0-3, but those were matches that were very difficult for the team. This roster is just kind of building around each other and just aiming on going forward and growing, and they continue to show that trend. They are growing.
Especially when we're talking about Sport Billy, one of the things that I found very impressive was his false step play. Of course, we all know about that massive boss steal on the Medivh with the ley line steal, but his false step play was just like so solid and oftentimes carried the team. To an extent where it really surprised me that teams didn't aggressively either pick false step away from the playing Ducks or actually just ban it out. So going into the map now, we have Team Dignitas making a stand right away, picking the Dehaka here and saying, okay, we want to have the global. It's also a great solo laner, so they're already playing around the fact that we have 2 lanes, which have a fairly huge... I mean, it takes a long travel time to actually go from one lane to another, so globals, even though the map itself is a little bit smaller, gain a lot of value here.
Playing Ducks will be selecting their few heroes here as well. There is a couple of options for them in that top lane now, with Dehaka already being chosen. Sony can be a great pickup. Ragnarok's still pretty solid, especially on this battleground in particular. You need that defense being available. He will slowly get pushed by Dignitas' Dehaka, but they will be able to handle that lane. Now, playing Ducks does enjoy building out a strong 4-man on this battleground. We've seen Zarya in the past. We've seen Morales to a degree. Even the Chromie and Vala mix-ups. So watch out for those in these selections.
And we have already wave clear, and they just solidify the front line. So first of all, the Johanna, the added wave clear with her. Zarya, great for the poke if you're trying to make that 4-man work. This is, of course, absolutely fantastic for them. They have a very strong position to take that beacon at the 4-man lane. And this is a very good start into it. They give, of course, Dignitas with this start a bit of an opportunity to take some of the damage dealers away from them and ban some of them out. But this is a very good setup where they, on the other hand, also neglect supports like, for example, Lucio.
Yep, startup is great. Normally here you would start to pick up your support. Dignitas used to be infamous for just picking Malfurion first, no matter what, if that option was available. But with the Dehaka being taken, I do see him in a spot where we go into the second and third rotation. However, Bakery has stated often on Twitter that he loves Lucio. So Lucio and Malfurion, I do expect to see one of those picked up here for Dignitas.
Lucio coming in was definitely a bit of a game changer for every support player because he is just another support that adds a lot of versatility. But they go back to the Malfurion here. The Lucio actually slide through for now. But we have them with false stat. So now all of a sudden that false stat and the Dehaka, both of the globals available to them, and that allows them to make a lot of plays just being very versatile on the beacon control. Because oftentimes, even if you are very dominant with a 4-man. If your opponent has globals and you don't, you can still try and out-rotate them and therefore make sure that they don't get the objective. So this is one of the things on Braxis that we have to watch out for, and Dignitas is playing this very similar to what we've seen from Team Liquid.
Our rotation is almost key against a Zarya composition, because most of the time when you see a Zarya, that usually means 3 to 4 people are going to be near each other at all times. So that means somewhere on the battleground, there is free stuff to pick up, whether that's experience, mercenary camps, even maybe a pick on the opposing team, that one laner hanging by themselves. So Falstad, Dahaka makes a lot of sense here. Now the Playing Ducks are thinking about their next ban. Some engage possibly needs to come here for Dignitas. If you're thinking about JPL, Murden, and his HGC are relatively strong. However, they ban out the Sylvanas.
So apparently a bit afraid of just getting snowballed here. Sylvanas, of course, is empowering that Zerg wave a lot. Dignitas isn't really shocking to see that they're banning out the Lucio here. We've seen a lot of focus on picking up the supports and banning them out. In this case, it was actually a bit uncharacteristic to what we've seen so far, that the Playing Ducks were focusing this heavily on their front line. If so, or if at all, we have seen this with Arthas and Anubarak so far from other teams. But normally it's really that question of, do you ban out the Lucio or do you pick him up? Since Dignitas prefers to go into the Malfurion here, they take Lucio away from the opponent. That makes a lot of sense. And now we are more or less going into the damage dealers on the side of the Playing Ducks. And then we are probably going to talk Vala again.
Vala, Jaina could also be an option, one that the Playing Ducks love to run. You can get that engaged with the Condemn into potentially a Blessed Shield, burst somebody down. Also, if you get the actual engage from maybe another tank here. They are running just Johanna, but I'm expecting maybe more of a Thrall, more of a Sonya, more of a Ragnaros for this team, just based on what the Playing Ducks has played in the past.
You also point out the Chromie, which we have seen on this map occasionally, so that's another great hero where you can get very good poke, very strong poke, but first of all, it's the Vala as expected. And that's going to be Chris. Like, Vala is one of his most played heroes, and this is definitely going to be a very comfortable pick for him. Then again, Ragnaros himself with a great ability to just like shut down any kind of Zerg wave that moves in, slow down the game a bit. So this is a really strong setup for them here.
Dignitas now looking, I believe, for JPL's hero, as well as Mayonnaise. He can run Falset. We've seen some Falset here in the past, and I'm expecting that to be more of a snitch pick, and Dahaka probably going to be that Zalia pickup. So in terms of actual engaged tanks, what do you think we're going to go for here for Dig?
When it comes to the tanks, I mean, we could still see something along the lines of an ETC, but Arthas is also out there. We have seen him with taking a huge presence there.
It's true.
Mane usually more mage focused, so I would expect that he's going to jump on one of those. And yeah, with this, they could either move into a Jaina, or instead they could use once again a Kel'Thas. Kel'Thas is something that they have shown several times on Infernal Shrines, so maybe even a
Does KT
Li Ming for the poke.
Li Ming, okay. Li
There we
Ming
go.
Arthas. I would have liked KT a little bit more for wave clear, but they do have the rotations available for Dignitas, so they're looking for those pickoffs. And then Li Ming, of course, you get that reset city going, and Mane will definitely perform.
I like the Li Ming quite a bit because I think he can really poke towards the beacon. I feel like with the setup that we're currently having for the teams, it's very likely that the Playing Ducks and the 4-man are going to establish control of the beacon, and then poking from outside with Li Ming is going to help them a lot. Later on in the game, the resets that you mentioned are going to play a big role. And Arthas here makes also a lot of sense. We've been talking about that just briefly right now, but he's really that guy that wants to establish control, that has wave clear on his own. So the setup for them is definitely a good one.
So talking supports here, what do you pick up? Ariel?
Oriel would definitely work with the Vala here. That's one of the things that they can aim for. We have them with also a pretty strong front line. If they want to play a Rhaegar, would fit as well. I guess at that point, it's really a comfort pick on their end. Whatever they're more comfortable with, that's what they should go for here. Oriel, on the other hand, has one advantage. He has the Determined Strike if a Dehaka comes in, or an Arthas. And at the same time, you sacrifice the Cleanse, so it's really that trade-off that you have to think about.
Ariel's going to be the last that can pick him. So, Playing Ducks versus Team Dignitas. Wave clear and control on that bottom lane set up here for the Playing Ducks. Dignitas on the right side. More isolation into quick rotations available for them. They have their Arthas route into potentially a Falset Fly, or of course Dahaka with the brush shot coming in.
Yeah. I really like what Dignitas has with the globals, and you could see that Playing Ducks didn't value them as much as Dignitas did. They were just saying, okay, we have a very strong 4-man, we don't need that rotation, we're going to win the 4-man there, and the top lane we're going to have, or the solo lane we're going to have Ragnaros on that. So I feel like both teams have a really solid setup. I would say that Dignitas with the globals that they're running right now are in their comfort zone, and that should give them a bit of an edge going into this. So I think both teams got away with what they really wanted.
Yeah, this is definitely a matchup of comfort zones, as you just mentioned. This is something Playing Ducks always run. They want to have that strong 4-man rotation, and they just prey in their top laner and to handle relatively well. I will say the Dahaka play from playing Ducks in the past hasn't been so solid, so I can see why they didn't really care so much about grabbing that. So yeah, it's going to come down to these rotations in this early game. The first couple of minutes are going to be important for our two teams on this battleground. Playing Ducks going to a map that they are comfortable with.
Yeah, and it's actually like kicking us off into a best of 5. That's quite important. Once again, I mean, we have the established top 3, and everybody's just like trying to bring those boys down. And so far, very few teams have been able to do that. So if Playing Ducks is able to win a best of 5 series against a team like Dignitas, that is an amazing jump they're going to make in the standings just to get away from that crucible and not dropping down. Because as we saw and heard earlier, Synergy, they really want to get out of that spot they're in right now, and they've already said one of the teams that we have to take down is Playing Ducks. Best way to make sure that they're not dropping down here for BD is just like move forward by taking out one of the top 3.
That's one of the things about the HGC is we get to watch these teams that are considered mid-tier or lower tier. They get the opportunity to play against some of the best teams in the world. And I hope that every time they play against them, they just sit down for a study session, not play the game, and focus on replays and learn from it. And the Playing Ducks is one of those teams that has admitted to, we're here to focus and we're here to grow. And now we get to see the results. They've played all 3 teams consistently. They've taken a game off of them. Do they improve from here? Can they make it a close series against Dignitas? And that's what I'm excited for.
And we are going to jump into that game in just a second, and I can't wait to kick this off. It's going to be one of the interesting best of 5s, especially since the Playing Ducks have been... They have improved so much, also from like the beginning of the season. Was really well done, and now they had a bit of a break, but they could improve even further. And I want to see what all that hard work really accumulates to. If they are able to threaten Dignitas right now with this. Also, of course, for Dignitas, coming back of a big victory at the Western Clash, this is going to be a bit of a judgment of where they stand right now in the season itself.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. There's a lot of weight here on Dignitas. First off, because they did well in the Western Clash, but second off, because some people kind of doubt their ability when they're online, and these leagues, which they were able to do well in, they didn't lose to anyone outside of the top 3, but there were moments where it was relatively close. So Dignitas coming off this huge, amazing win in a LAN setting, can they bring over that heat, that pressure that they really pulled off in the on the LAN setting over to the league? That's always been the question.
Especially with LANs, it's just fascinating. We talked about this a bit yesterday. Every time we go into an offline event, it's the same story. Most people expect Misfits to do really well. Team Liquid now, that they changed organizations, and they are also like online absolutely dominant. We've seen that in the season. Then you have Fnatic, where everybody says, hey, when we are scrimming against Fnatic, these kids are just wrecking us. And then at the end of the event, it's always Dignitas wins it. So they are doing exceptionally well. They win when it matters the most.
Well, speaking of winning when it's needed the most, Dignitas did that, and part of it was because of Bakery here with 58.4k, top 3 in the league in terms of average heals, up there with Wolf Joe and Curson. It's definitely one of the reasons why this team does so well. He's always on point there for the cleanses, and he does it with Malfurion. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and jump into the first match. Braxis Holdout, best of 5 series, Playing Ducks versus Team Dignitas.
And starting us off to the left side of the map, we have the Playing Ducks here in blue with Nanda on Ragnaros, Chris on Johanna, Chris on Vala, Sport Billy on Zarya, and Wolfjo is playing Oriel here today.
Gonna keep an eye on Nande. Nande's had some rough times in the past. Over here on the right, Bakery will be playing the Malfurion, JPL on Arthas, Snitch on Falstad. We're gonna have Mene on Li Ming, and last but not least, Zalia on Dahaka.
Yeah, and also one of the things that we have seen in the past is now Chris Broshan playing the Johanna again. It's actually a change that the team made halfway through the first part of the season, because back then, especially on the ETC, he was struggling a bit and was trying to go for very aggressive plays, which oftentimes put him a bit too far out. And on Johanna, he seems a lot more comfortable. He had a much bigger impact on the team's performance once they made that switch. And the bot lane, as expected, this is where we have the 4-man right now for Playing Ducks, and I'm curious to see how much they can threaten Dignitas here.
Dignitas setting up for the 5-man gank. Whoever might come up here to check out the area, they can always send someone top with that global they have available. Playing Ducks plays safe, as Nande has called out to his team that nobody is in the top lane. So solid communication between our teams.
And that 5-man that we just saw, they fly now up to the top, or they burrow to the top with Dahaka, but that 5-man alone already enabled them to get a bit more of an aggressive stance for the first wave that they bursted down here. The lockdown already happening here. Chris on the Vala gets caught, but is saved by his teammates. Wolfja has a lot of energy on that Oriel, all that hope thanks to the damage output that Bala is able to bring to the table. And once again, the setup as JPL starts to flank.
Ooh, but the shield comes out, and Sport Billy will get a massive amount of energy there so he can ramp up his damage. He's going for that Q build, so he'll be doing a massive amount of poke. You talked about it in the draft. One of the strengths of Zarya in this bottom man forward rotation, she can get easy energy. There's a lot of poke going on from the teams back and forth.
And one of the things that you can also see here down at the bottom with JPL and Mena is just like that synergy that they're trying to execute here. So it's not like Mena's just like simply throwing out his spells. He's currently waiting for Arthas to make a move and get the Howling Blast in and tries to capitalize on the Howling Blast with a combo. And this is something that they trade actually in Hero League and Team League. Like they go in and try to just simply say, okay, we're going to play a couple of games, and the only thing that we're going to do is try to get that synergy right and get the cooldown timings right. So this is something that does not obviously come natural, but they are actually working to make it happen.
It's a goal you got to have as a team. Being on the same page can be the difference between a victory and a death for the entire roster. Chris working in some attacks here. JPL on the front line. Snitch there with the assist. And Chris Explosion go back for the condemn. With our beacons now spawning, it's all about the control. You're going to be watching towards your tanks here. They are the main initiators for the team.
Yeah, JPL immediately taking a stance on the beacon, but he is a bit zoned out now. Chris is attempting to get the first kill for the team, but Sport Billy on the other side has to move back. Nice drag, good root, and the death of Johanna. Great play here by Dignitas, and very, very nice synced up cooldowns, one that we just saw from Zelia and JPL.
Incredibly well played there by Zelia too. The Ariel came in from the side and was going to use Entertainment Strike to knock him against the wall, and Zelia sidestepped it at the last second, knowing that's what he was going for, so that set him up to move in for an engage and get the kill. Zelia playing out of his mind.
And let's just like look at the bigger picture here for a moment. What just happened? How did he actually just like come in there? They have two globals, so what they're currently doing is they're setting ganks up with Zelia at the top lane on the Dehaka, moving down, Snitch flying top, so that they're not losing experience. So they're perfectly rotating with the two globals that they have to make sure that they have very dangerous ganks against the 4-man in the bot lane. And the same could also happen to the Ragnaros up at the top if there's a fly-in.
There's no layover between the globals being used. They're using them as staggered abilities. That way they can make sure to maximize experience growth and kills. And this has put them slightly ahead in terms of levels. Solid play from Dignitas. Chris Explosion taking some damage here on the left. Mene being in a spot where Chris Explosion maybe want to go in for a condemn, and he's forced to retreat. Brushstalker though coming out. The root does connect to Sport Billy. He's going to be focused down. The drag is available. It connects. Dignitas with another takedown.
I am absolutely loving this. Again, he goes down, Snitch flies top. This is beautiful. This is absolutely awesome how they're currently executing it, and it just puts so much pressure onto the playing Ducks because they have to be always worried about this turning into a 5 versus 4. And normally the downside of that rotation is that you're starting to lose experience on the second lane. With the setup that they're running here, this just doesn't happen.
This is teamwork, and it's beautiful. As you stated, Dignitas now gets a 100% beacon. We won't have a massive push here in the bottom, aided by Mene. And playing Ducks are in a spot where they need to watch out for Dignitas. Arthas is coming in for a potential rotation onto the Howling Blast onto opponent. It does not connect. With Nande using the Molten Core, they will have a defense available.
Yeah, Chris Explosion now also just walking away, using his D, making sure that he has the Iron Skin active. Of course, Molten Core again is a great delay tool when you're going up against the wave. These things also scale towards the late game a little bit, but at this point, Team Dignitas with 2 versus 0 kills, doing very well here and breaking through the wall, also eliminating the fountain of the bot lane.
Nice kills by the team. Dignitas set up really well here. They're so disciplined here, and it's something that they've been working on continuously. Dunk Train, being a coach for them now, has guided them slightly here and there. They've been working together as a unit of 6 to make sure these moments call out there. So a big shout out to Dunk Train, man, North America, influencing Europe slightly.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
We gotta have a victory somewhere, man. Let us have it, Calidor.
Come on, you were waiting for that. That was an intentional bait. I see what you did there. But yeah, Dunk definitely helping the team quite a bit. I mean, they had a lot of discussions also when they were playing at the Western Clash here. So yeah, shout out to him. And yeah, game continues here, of course. Slight lead for Dignitas, inexperience, but they have a lot of pressure going towards that bottom fort now that the fountain is taken out. And yeah, playing Ducks, they actually changed their MO a little bit. They made the top lane a 2-man for now, trying to make sure that they can put a little bit more pressure on Zelia.
Early game has been great for Dignitas, but playing Ducks is not out yet. Remember, they still have a strong four-man lineup with Zarya, Vala, Ariel, and Johanna, so they can get to aggressive plays and also win 10 hits, Sulfura Smash.
Great move here, really smart actually. We have once again the playing Ducks with the two-man up at the top, which I just mentioned, to put more pressure on Zelia. Dignitas realizes it, moves back to take the camp because they know they can't be contested. They know it's going to be a 4 versus 3, even if the playing Ducks move in. They also have vision. Now they are pushing again, so they have a camp and an advantage in numbers for a few seconds so when Ragnaros comes down to push that in, and there's so much pressure on that fort that they are about to take that down. So that again gave them a bit of a lead, and those just add up now.
Dignitas' experience and knowledge showing off there. A small play there gives them another, what, quarter health on that fort taken out, which means they can take it out later here, especially when they get the beacon phase. If they do unlock it with a massive wave, they can push top lane, and the bottom one should be killed off, and that will also give them the spot to be in level 10. Playing Ducks now is grabbing whatever they can. Consolation prizes here. Mercs on the left, Mercs on the bottom left, knowing that their opponents are about to hit 10. They don't want to go for an aggressive play if they can't get a pick off.
I like that here. Zelia is not even trying to attack support. Billy is just like, no, you're not going to get any energy from me. You're just going to sit there. I'm going to buy some time. That nets them in the end 34% on the progress bar. So yeah, that works quite well for them. Really smart play by him. Knows exactly what he has to do. Once more, we have another hero joining the top lane. And even more points on the progress. Crisplosion, the only one moving in here. And finds himself immediately in trouble. Has to use the Iron Skin to get out of the roots. Dignitas with level 10s as well. Very dominant position.
And now here, Beacon about to finish up, and they have 3/4 of a level before the playing Ducks can even contest this point going away. Now, Molten Core could be used. We're going to need Nande to play very safe with the positioning of that, as JPL can move forward and set up and, of course, interrupt with the aid of Malfurion's Twilight Dream, or even the Wave of Force, or Mighty Gust if Stitch really wanted to. Here comes the push in the top lane. All members from playing Ducks are up here to defend.
Ragnaros is not going to get to that fort. That fort is forfeit. Like, he was way too late there. If Zelia gets close to him, he's going to get the tongue in and drag him away. This was great by Dignitas. They opened the wall and they immediately walked past the fort, just saying, boys, you are not going to delay this. You're not going to get your level 10 by using Molten Core here and netting some experience. Very solid play, and now they just rotate down and try to get even a bit more damage in here. Dignitas is currently playing an amazing game.
Dignitas looks stupid good right now. Like, if I'm on the opposing team, like, what do I do? How do I handle this, you know?
You pray for 10.
Yeah.
And I mean, they do. Look how far ahead they are. It's not only that they have the level 10, they have taken out 2 of the forts. Both of those fountains are down. Dignitas themselves have not lost a wall yet, which means they have always a very short distance to safety where they can retreat after a fight over a beacon. And they are also 2 levels ahead of the opponent, aiming for level 13 and another talent lead. Like, this is an incredible strong performance by them thus far.
That's a good point. With the forts being taken out, the map is opened up for them, which makes playing Ducks safe back. They are sitting in an area where they can control space if Dignitas were to come into that small area, but everything else is Dignitas's. Everything is red. Whatever the red touches is theirs. They're attempting to take some Hellbats. Playing Ducks steps forward because this is the point where they can contest, but Dignitas just retreats away and floats around. You have Dahaka in the top right doing Hellbats. They're soaking experience from the bottom left. They don't mind giving those up.
Yeah, and we actually have a bit of a play in the middle lane here for playing Ducks. They are going for a boss. They are forcing something. They realize they don't want to die a slow death. So they are trying to force a battle here over the boss. But that drag against Zarya, oh my god, that couldn't have been any better. And Bakery with a great Twilight Dream follow-up, and that's going to be a second kill. Fantastic performance.
Playing Ducks do get the boss, so the explosion zone was put out right before the sun's connected. Dignitas was trying to interrupt that from occurring, so they couldn't actually steal away or get that boss, and they could have stealed it away, and Dignitas would have been in a great spot. Nonetheless, they still won the team fight because of that drag and that silence. The coordination was on point. They come up here and they clean up the boss, which is relatively easy to deal with, especially when nobody's pushing with it.
Now again, coming back to that play for a second, there's also one thing that we have to consider. The chances of Dignitas trying to go for the boss themselves once they reach the level 13 advantage are pretty big. So from that point on, like playing Ducks, they know that. And they realize, hey, we are going to die a very slow and painful death if we are not trying to force the issue here. So if Dignitas reaches 13, takes the boss themselves, then it's like even worse for them. So they make a risky play, because they're saying, guys, we have to do something. Let's try and fight while we're in even talents. We fight around the boss. Best case scenario, we get boss and we get a couple of kills, and all of a sudden we have momentum and we can push. Worst case scenario is we lose both, but then we are in the same situation as before. This way they at least managed to get the boss, and therefore took that away from Dignitas as an option.
Yeah, that's a moment that a lot of players at home can learn from. You can't always sit down and lay down and take a beating. Eventually you have to make a play. You have to weigh the risk. Of course, sometimes things are more risky than others, but that play right there was something that Playing Ducks had to get done to have a chance to continue to come back in the game. And they pulled it off well, mostly because they understood that they have Zarya and the explosion zone, which is very hard for the opponents to deal with. Solid play by Playing Ducks. It's a small one, but it's one they had to take.
4 kills against 0 now, so currently we're still having the 2 level lead. And that's another 100% Zerg wave against 0, just simply because the Playing Ducks realized they cannot fight against the level 13 talent just yet. So Dignitas is, I mean, they are making perfect choices here. They paint the map red, they know exactly where to go, they sync everything up. The Haka is pushing top, he has the global, there's 2 camps. So it's not only that the Zerg wave currently threatens the lane, but at the same time you have a massive push coming to the top. This is very likely going to result in a keep lost on the side of Playing Ducks, especially since Ragnaros isn't even confident enough to go for the Molten Core here, or at least, well, there we go.
Going for it, the Gus comes out. Playing Ducks are being stressed right now to make a play. Dignitas is squeezing them into a scenario where they have to do something or they just lose the game. 15-11, a 4-level lead. Dahaka burrows into the bottom to aid the push for Dignitas, and they are looking for some core damage and a pick. There goes the drag, so Fierce Smash comes out. Snitch dodges it effortlessly. Nande on the right side as well, going in for something.
And that is the kill. Ragnaros, on the other hand, from behind with the Molten Core. Snitch barreling out of it immediately, but the core is already falling and is down. This is game 12, 13 minutes in, and we are seeing victory for Team Dignitas on the first map, Braxis Holdout.
This team is just coming together, and if game 1 is a statement for the next couple of games, I am scared for the Playing Ducks. Dignitas has it figured out right now.
Great moves overall. I love the double global at the beginning, just that constant rotation between the two of them. Later on, when Ragnaros was trying to go for the Molten Core, they had 2-3 options to actually deny him from doing that. They used the Gust in the end, just push him back. The keep falls, he's sneaking in from the side. Crisplosion being a bit out of position, trying to look for an angle, but getting locked down and taken apart. They seized the opportunity and end the game. That was flawless.
Yeah, that was flawless. I think that's something that anyone that's a Dignitas fan wanted to see here. After a great performance in the Western Clash, did the team continue to improve and just clean up their gameplay? And they've obviously been working. Dignitas has not slacked off at all. They are seriously a contender here for the HGC, and they need to be. If they want to be in the #1 spot, if they want to take out Team Liquid, they have to be on point.
And it was beautiful. The power of the double global here. Once again, we saw the same or very similar moves with Team Liquid yesterday, but these double globals, if you play them correctly, if you know how to play the macro game there, it's just so strong.
It's interesting how double globals are starting to go through in the draft now because people are prioritizing those supports, getting those shields set up, this new shield meta, and suddenly Dahaka Falstad is kind of being forgotten about. And you can't forget that. How do you balance all this stuff in draft?
It's going to change fast.
Yeah, it certainly is.
After watching the games yesterday and today, that is definitely going to be shut down a lot sooner now.
Well, we'll see if it gets shut down anytime soon here. We're going to be right back after a commercial break. This is the HGC.